Hi guys, it's Kes here from the Next Generation podcast. So if you haven't tuned into one of our podcasts before, what we focus on is positivity, mental health, and then self-improvement. So an extended theme basically is giving you the confidence to believe in yourself, to succeed, and what success means to you. So today's topic is relaxation, and we are joined with Andy Kidd, a qualified personal trainer, athletics coach, strength coach, muscle activation expert, and sports massage therapist. So Andy Kidd, over to you.
Hello, how's it going, guys? Thanks for having me on the call.
It's a pleasure, Andy.
So go ahead.
So today we're going to be talking about the importance of relaxation generally in life, but if we start off with an importance of relaxation in sport. Over to you, Andy.
Well, yeah, it's something that's been a long journey, actually. I mean, in terms of where I've come from, is I qualified as a personal trainer and a gym instructor and strength coach back in 2007, and I've been an athlete before, and I've had a kind of a journey through training as an athlete since early noughties and stuff like that, and what I've brought into. And as I was actually training as a gym instructor, as I was applying my trade there, you start to learn about certain ways or coming across certain ways and experiences that have stood the test of time in me. And what I found was, as I was going through as being a personal trainer and stuff like that, that there were certain experiences I had as an athlete and stuff like that actually was a common theme throughout my kind of athletics career. So relaxation I've come to right now is one of the main themes. As being a muscle activation expert is what I do. And what I've found that relaxation is an underused tool in sport generally. And I'm very, very, I suppose, passionate about a flow state. Is that state where everybody can relate to that feeling of things going easy, things being easy for you. Things, you think of a problem, you correct a problem, or you fix a problem, or you think of an idea, a great idea, or you're on a roll with a workload and you're inspired and stuff like that. So I found that actually that was something that you could take into sports. And what I do as a muscle activation expert is actually harness that flow state, that feeling of making sports kind of your mind and body in tune with each other. And that's what I do with the Activate, which is the muscle activation method, which actually harnesses that flow state to get the body in a kind of heightened state. And what happens, because the flow state and the mind and body in sync, what you find is muscles react to that and perform better and become stronger, and they work together a lot better. So there's more kind of body integrity as well. So that's what I do and where it's come from. I've always found that as an athlete, my fastest races were always my easiest, and it's one of those things through experience you understand. And sometimes my hardest races were very, very slow, really, really tough on a tactic and stuff like that. So that's where I am at the moment. It's the kind of why I do what I do.
It sounds really counterintuitive though, doesn't it? Trying less to go faster, trying less to do better.
It is, yeah, it does sound it, but it's one of those paradoxical things, actually, because we're afraid, as you probably found it yourself, that once a coach asks you to relax, it means you don't put in a less effort, which means slower for most people. But it doesn't actually mean that. It means that you've more capacity. Relaxation is more of a mindset. It's not a physical action. So we've got to make sure that we as athletes or sports can understand that relaxation doesn't mean slower. One of the big things that one of my colleagues, actually, is a muscle activation expert himself, Tom Herbert, who's called the Useful Coach. He's got a YouTube video about it, and how a relaxed state, you're more capacity and got more kind of capacity to generate power than you have if you're in a tense stress state. And the problem with most of us now is that we don't understand what it feels like to be in a relaxed state because of the world and
That's really interesting.
Media and things like that. The phone, we're constantly thinking about problems, most of it. So we're constantly not in a relaxed state. So what happens is the body is in a kind of chronic stress state, and as a sportsman, you've less capacity to generate power. If you've actually a tense muscle, let's say if you want to do a bicep curl, if you're tense already, you can't generate more power because you're already tense already. But if you're relaxed, you'll actually kind of react, and there's more capacity to generate
in the movement.
Yeah, it's hugely important. It's really, really important. And if you treat kind of as a relaxation as a mindset, not a physical action, then you can actually set the right foundation for all the physical effort you put in.
That's brilliant, Andy. So you can almost get that extra 20% and reach 120%.
You're spending all your energy on running instead of tightening up and stuff like that. So it's a great way of efficiency as well and conserving energy.
And then, Andy, as well as when you're actually in the race, in the sport, in the moment, before the race, then a lot of athletes will get nervous, and the same with rugby players before a match or before someone's about to bat or bowl in cricket. What would you say would be a good thing to do for pre-competition anxiety to get into that relaxed state?
It's one of the easiest or better ways is there's one of two ways really that I can think of right now. One of the ways is point of focus for your body is hugely important. So if your mind is set up with nerves and negativity and fear, and you haven't got a handle on that, and you're not separating it's encompassing it, then you're concentrating your body on negativity. So one of the things is strong things, the body reacts to point of focus, negative point of focus and positive point of focus. So if you can get the body to think of something positive and inspirational in your life, it can make all the difference, and it can actually guard against nerves. So one of the tests I do for my activation sessions with my clients is I show them how the body changes in an instant from with each thought. And because it's hugely powerful, it's so simple as well. And what we do is, I mean, people can do this at home as well in their own time. But what you do is you actually hold out your arms, and you need an accomplice for it. So you get someone to stand behind you. You hold out your arms.
In a crucifix position.
Exactly, in the cross position. You get someone to stand behind you, and you get them to push down your hands, push down your arms. And you're supposed to hold. You're supposed to keep holding their hands up there. So you're basically not trying to get them to let them move. So you keep it rigid. And what you set that as a base measurement, and then you drop your hands down. You think of a stressful person or someone you don't like. You can say that it's mostly. You could say that it's
someone that makes you feel weak.
Something that's negative in your life that you hate doing. That's possibly, or you could say that's someone that you don't like. And that's basically, I think it's more personally for someone you don't like. It's someone that adds stress to your life.
Something powerful,
and then once you got that person straight in front of your head, it's standing right in front of you, you can actually
visualize it.
Visualize. So what happens is that you hold out your hands again and keep the visualizing of that person, and you get the person to press down again. And normally you'll find that the body is weak underneath. And normally, out of the majority of people.
Interesting.
But what happens if you then think of someone who's an inspiration in your life, and then you've got that person straight in front of you, and someone that brings only positive thoughts to you, and you hold out your hands again, you get that person to press down your hands again, and you'll be strong. You'll almost be pushing up against it. So that's one thing. That's what I mean by point of focus. If someone before a race can actually get to that point when they think that inspirational figure before the race. Because what happens is their point of focus is on that and not on the nerves. So that's a massive thing. So the point of focus is so important. If an athlete can feel and think about inspirational figure, the body is going to be basically in a stronger state than it was originally. So that's mostly for athletes who struggle to get in the present moment and separate themselves from their nerves. But the best way is probably to get yourself, if you can actually separate yourself from the nerves, and notice the nerves are not you, and basically get yourself in the present moment using breathing, which we'll go over later on in the call, then you're likely to get, it's probably the best way to do it, because you want to be in the present moment where your body is strong, and that is going to harness a lot more power. You're going to be able to correct and fine-tune your race as you go through it if you're in the present moment. But so there's there's two ways really. present moment, deep breaths, get yourself into your body, separate yourself from the nerves, and almost don't ignore the nerves, but basically notice them as something that's natural, and almost use the nerves as an energy that you can use for yourself to turn it into a positive. There's some research to say that fear can be used positively as energy, that's as excitement. So fear and excitement together. So if you can switch that on to the nerves into something it's a benefit to you.
Help you.
Yeah. One other thing as well is that some people will say, well, what about visualization and stuff like that? But visualization obviously can be good, and you should already do that before your race for a period of time. But you don't have to repeatedly go over the visualization in your race. It's fundamentally visualize and then get yourself in the present moment, or get yourself thinking about that inspirational figure. So there's one of two ways.
Brilliant. And then, Andy, a lot of people I think try and just ignore their nerves, pretend they're not nervous, and just completely forget about them. How destructive would you say that could be to a performance?
You never want to ignore them, the nerves there. You do recognize and accept them there. I mean, when you ignore them, it can be a little bit delusional, yes. What you want to do is, if you're nervous, is accept that the nerves are there. Don't try and not be nervous. It's basically accept the nerves are there and be comfortable with them being there. And you can do that. You can get to a point where you separate yourself out and accept the nerves are there. Once you accept the nerves are there, then that's one of the best ways you can change it to, you accept the nerves are there, and you're basically in the present moment, using the breathing, which will go, as you say. That is one of the best ways to treat the nerves. Yeah, you don't want to be delusional and say, almost kind of ignore them, or kind of distort the truth. Accept the nerves are there, and then you'll find that they're you can handle them easily.
Andy, I remember you telling me before an athletic session we did that there was one race where you turned up late and you missed the 400-meter hurdles. So when you decided to run a good race, would you like to tell the audience a bit about that?
That's kind of one of the guidelines I have of why I do what I do. It's one of those best ways actually of doing it, is where you're making a decision in your mind that you're going to do something and then going away and doing it. And I found I put that to the test back in however long ago, where back in my days when I was traveling around. So this is when I was training as an athlete. I traveled to an event somewhere in Ireland, and I arrived late and I missed the 400-meter hurdles. I must have got the timing wrong, and I was angry with myself. And it was, because I traveled all the way. I'd done all this training, worked hard, and you want to be able to put it to good use in the session, in a race. But I missed the race, and I was very angry with myself for this. So I decided to put myself in the 400-meter race later on in the day, and I decided in my mind, I've traveled this way. I'm not going to leave this session or race or this event without a PB. I decided I just decided it was basically going to happen.
Made a decision.
And it was not so much, and people will say, well, you made yourself angry, and angry was the best way of doing it. I don't believe that. Anger kind of actually made me focus, but you don't need anger for it. But what happened was that I decided to put myself in the 400-meter race later on, and I decided in my own mind, I'm going to do a 400-meter PB here. And I went out and did it very much quicker than, so cool. I don't know how much, I can't remember. But what was significant as well is that I'd just come back from injury as well. So I'd done very little training. But once you make a decision in your mind and you just give your body something to do, then you go out and do it. And you did make the decision, I'm going to do a PB. And that's what I did. And I went out and did it. And it was so simple. It was very simple. And it's only by looking back at hindsight, when you look at using the power of your body to tear up for your own good. Yeah. And it's one of those things that if you decide to do that, it's not so much putting pressure on yourself, but I just simply made a decision in my mind that I was going to do it, and I went out and did it. And it's something where you remove all doubt as well. Doubt is one of the killer things that hits people in the thing. Then you can do it. If you can actually, it can actually be very powerful and make that decision that you're going to do a PB, and you give the body a direction, as it were.
So Andy, if someone's having a bad day at work, or they've done one exam in the day, they're not doing too well, what would you say would be a good thing just to snap back and decide that it's going to be a good rest of the day, you're going to do well in the rest of what you've got to do?
Well, first thing as well is to get into your own body, I think, is to make sure that you can separate yourself out and notice that you're thinking these thoughts. So what, as I do, in terms of the muscle activation, is of the activated, the system I do is just bringing you back to your body. So what you need, the best thing to do is the deep breathing is massively important to do that, to bring yourself back, because you might be stressed from a bad day. You might be stressed from a bad exam. You might be stressed. It's very important that you separate yourself, bring yourself back to your body, and do deep breathing exercises so you can relax into that state. And from there onwards, you can make the decision, I'm going to have a great rest of the day. But bring yourself back to your kind of yourself, feel your body, feel yourself breathing in and out. It's almost like meditation. Once you set that base, and then you decide, right, I'm up for a great day now. I'm up for a good rest of the day. But bring yourself back to your kind of yourself, feel your body, feel yourself breathing in and out. It's almost like meditation. Once you set that base, and then you decide, right, I'm up for a great day now. I'm up for a good rest of the day.
Yeah, it's been like the pilot of your plane, just getting yourself back into the plane to make the decision.
Yeah, really exactly. It's one of the best ways of really be separating yourself from those thoughts. It's a big skill, and it's something that we struggle to do. We don't. If you can't actually separate yourself from those thoughts, the negative, it's going to be very difficult to do it. So, but if you do it with practice throughout the day, and starting with the meditation is a good starting point, but throughout the day, just notice yourself, right, those thoughts are not beneficial for me. Turn to something different, something beneficial, to something more positive. Bringing yourself back to yourself. Deep breathing. That's far more positive. But it takes practice. It takes practice to do that.
Andy, I often feel more relaxed when I've been a bit active throughout the day. So maybe not a session that's absolutely killed me, but I've been moving around. Would you say that has a good impact on relaxation when you've been slightly active throughout the day?
Yes. It's one of those things that it is that I think Tony Robbins talks about it as well, is that it's movement. The body wants two things. It wants to breathe and to move. So yes, too much static and too much sitting around will make you sluggish. So if you can harness the power of breathing and keep active as well, that is a huge, huge thing. That's what, for generally people at school studying for exams, that's why training and exercise is so important. If you want to study well, you must keep active. You must do what you do in terms of training, something else to take your mind off it as well.
Yeah, give yourself an outlet.
You've got to stay active, keep moving. If you're sitting in a slouch position, studying all day, you're going to come unstuck, and won't be taking as much information. The body needs to breathe and it needs to move. There's two general rules. It's just a basis for us life. We need to be able to do both, otherwise we die as human beings. So we need to be able to move. If you want to study well, taking shorter study periods and more activity training is going to benefit you a lot better than just one solid block of just continuous study.
I think that's great that you've highlighted that, Andy, because relaxation is often kind of imaged as just sitting back, sunbathing, reading a book. And although those are great things to do, it's important to keep moving, as you said.
To keep it moving. And also, this kind of the thing is, the relaxation's not watching Netflix. It's not
Yeah.
On your phone. It's not continuously on your phone on Instagram looking at that's not relaxation. That's one of the things when you're not relaxed, and you need to be able to bring yourself back to yourself, into your own body, and breathe and be here now. That's very, very important, because we've all got little addictions to our phones. We've all got
Definitely.
addictions to outside factors outside of ourselves. We come first. We've got to think about ourselves to be a benefit to us, to what we want to achieve, but also to be a benefit to all those around us as well, all the loved ones. We want to be a great benefit to us. We won't do that if we're constantly in a stress state, being mind taken away to the mobile phone.
Yeah, your environment, all the distractions.
It's got to be. You've got to recognise your own, very much for your own benefit, with all those people around. You've got to notice your own addiction to your phone, to what's happening to yourself, and whether you're here now, and whether you can actually put the phone down and almost meditate and breathe and bring yourself back to yourself. That's you in a powerful state. That's hugely important. It's not a holier than thou thing either. I struggle sometimes with it as well, but at least I can actually get to a point where I can leave my phone behind and be without it for the whole day, and not consider
not dependent on it.
Yeah. So those emails, all Instagram can wait. I suppose one of the best ways is you can actually, if you get to a point where you set a time limit on how much you spend on your mobile phone, that's one of the best ways to do it. That's one of the things.
You remain in control rather than your phone controlling you with every beep and having to touch it.
Yeah, that's massive. Yeah, we're really living in an age where we've got so much. Life is accelerated. Technology is accelerated to such an extent that we as a human beings haven't caught up with it. We haven't learned how to deal with it, really.
Yeah,
we're still, and because the phone companies and the social media and the internet companies don't want us to be off our phones. It's down to us to look after ourselves and our own mental health, and it's very, very important.
Andy, one of the activations you've done on me that I really love is the vision one, where you do the activation and then you start to notice your surroundings a bit more. It's as if your vision extends. Would you like to talk a bit about that one?
Yeah, it's one of the things, but when we get into a stress state, a sympathetic state, one of the reasons why we get into that sympathetic state, one of the actions we do is where our vision becomes limited, because when we were kind of coming from the dark ages, we needed to escape danger. So there would be on the odd occasion a lion or something like that. It's called the fight or flight or freeze state, where we had to react to a certain danger, immediate danger to us. And what happens when that happens is that our focus becomes solely focused on that danger. And what happens is nowadays is that because of the social media, because of the way we live our lives now, we get a kind of danger all the time. And constantly our body is constantly in this sympathetic stress state. And this happening it's not just because you're young and healthy. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen to you guys as well. It's happening at earlier age, where kids have got mobile phones at a very young age nowadays, and they're getting addicted to their phone a lot easier. So their minds are turning to these kind of very stressful events happening on the phone. On their mind is constantly brought
distractions at the sides.
So it's happening earlier, but what's happening is most of us don't know what being a relaxed state is. But when we're in a sympathetic state, our minds basically our vision becomes centered on the danger. And if we're constantly in that, then our vision is constantly on danger, like that. So what I do is a kind of visual field activation. And once you kind of find this, it happens on certain points. You rub certain parts of the body, and that's it happens for different athletes and different people where that point is. But there's a point on your body, could be anywhere, could be on your back, could be on your stomach, or around your ribs, or your sternum. It could be at the back of the neck. But if we find that point, then your visual field will open up, and you'll start to see everything around you. It's because
you're living in the present,
kind of just taking a deep breath, and it's basically gone into a parasympathetic state, and it's just basically opened up like that. then the body's let go of what was that stress state that it was happening. So that's one of the things. And once you're in that relaxed state, then the muscles react. What I found is, as we did that, do you remember when you were in a stress state,
Yeah,
you looked
extended
at
out to the side.
your arms buckled. But if it didn't happen in any other parts, but if we actually concentrated on that point, did the activation, then your arm didn't buckle. So it's amazing if outside these points here, if we're in a sympathetic state, everything outside here is a stress to the body because it doesn't know it's there. No, it doesn't understand anything out there. And because of that, it's uncertain. That it's in a shutdown state, so the muscles will buckle under that. But if you can actually find that point on your body, then that just releases that stress. Then your visual field just opens up, and you can see colors. You can see much more clearer. It's and you can see at a wider focus as well, as you found out.
I really noticed it with the balance as well. It was as if it all been intertwined a bit better.
What? Sorry.
With the balance, I found that really noticeable. I was doing a stretch on one leg, and it was so much different. It's
incredible how some people actually get to find different things, and they find they react. They get different benefits from it. It's so open. When the body releases itself, it could be great lightness. It could be something completely profound. It could be whatever. But yeah, it's a huge range of things, from flexibility to strength to to balance to whatever, when you actually just that visual field is sorted out.
I expect everyone's absolutely engaged with these activations we've been talking about. Do you reckon now would be a good time to introduce them to a belly breathing?
Yeah, well, that's perfect. Yeah. So what happens is we need to actually be able to find a base measurement so people can understand and feel the difference what we're doing. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to say, so what I'm going to do is a simple test for everybody to do, and they can do at home and just feel the change, what it is. So most people will be sitting in a chair. So what I'd like people to do right now is just in their own time, do 3 standing up and sitting down, standing up, sitting down, and standing up. So do it 3 times. So you and us, Kez, will do it together.
Yeah.
And that will be the base measurement, what we're going to be using, so we can see the change later on. So let's go and stand up and down.
Yeah, really take note of how it feels in your legs, your back.
Exactly. Yeah. Take note how you're doing, and then one final time, lifting upwards and then down. Nice. Okay. So once we've done that, what we're going to do now is one activation, and this is the base activation that I do. That's the kind of base behind every other activation. If this doesn't work, or doesn't do its job, then all the other activations I do are really don't work as well. So this is hugely important. So breathing, as they said, breathing and moving are the most important things. So we need to learn to breathe correctly. And a lot of people, because we're in a stress state, we don't understand how to breathe correctly. So what we're going to do is get your fingers in this area, just 4 fingers, and right below your ribs. I don't know if you but you've got your ribs there, and the edge of your ribs. And if I can actually get to that point here, so the edge of your ribs, way up here to an upside down Y, you want to rub up against them. Now this is freaky. This looks weird. Exactly. So what Kez is doing, there's the edge of your ribs, and it goes up into an upside down Y. You want to rub along the edge of the ribs in an upside down Y. And what people will find, some of you might find this is a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit painful, or they might not feel anything. So that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, it's often a bit grisly.
It's a bit grisly. But we want to just make sure, get in there and go up the sternum this time. So we want to rub up the sternum. And what we're doing is we're kind of getting activating the diaphragm so we can breathe properly. So we're working all the way up, and you can see some grisly parts up in this point as well. And this is a lot of people find this very uncomfortable up here. So this is quite painful at points. So, but don't shy away from the pain. Don't stop it, because the pain shouldn't be there. And we'll roll all the way up to the top. And just where the clavicle is there, rub up there. And there should be the grisly parts in there as well. Okay, and release. Okay, so if we sit down, what we want to do now is we want to do belly breathing. Now, belly breathing, you have to actually belly breathe. So what we want to do is take air into your nose, put our hands just below our belly button. Okay, so our index finger should just be below our belly button. That's the depth we want the air to go down to. So we take the air into your nose, a little bit lower. So you've got your kind of your pinky over your belly button. You've got the index finger just below your belly button. Okay, so really deep. It's almost down towards your hips. Exactly. Okay. So what you want to do is just make sure that the air is heading down towards your hand. So taking the air into your nose, your belly domes up, nothing in your chest, because what we do is this. Okay, what we don't want that. We want to make sure everything in the shoulders, everything perfectly still. The air is going deep down, so pushing the diaphragm down. Okay, so we're going to take in a breath. It could be for 4 seconds, 3 seconds. Hold it for a couple of seconds, then breathe out. Okay, so let's try it out.
Okay.
Once again. What you find is, as again, you want the air to go down, your hand should push out as the air fills up in your belly. Now, one thing possibly people can do is actually try, this is freaky as well, you put your hand on your nose, and that increases the air going into your nose. So that's a weird thing. Sometimes it's easier to take the air into the nose. The main idea is the air goes down to the belly, not the chest, not lifting the shoulders.
Shall I try and show a side profile, Andy? See if I can get in the camera.
Yeah, you can do, yeah. So if you stand up and it's basically your hand over thing. So basically you should actually take the air through your nose. And one final one. And relax. And so you can sit down there. And what we want to do is sense how we feel. Might feel a little bit, kind of faint. There's a lot of oxygen going to the air. So what we're going to do is we're going to stand up again. So we're going to stand up 3 times again. So up you go, up, and back down again. Up, back down again. And one final time, up, back down again. So how did you feel? What did you feel?
So personally, I felt a lot looser. So my legs didn't feel any strain in lifting myself up. And my back felt more pushed up and more open in my chest.
Exactly, yeah. So
I definitely feel a better sense of concentration.
Exactly. So what we've done is multiple things, because we don't concentrate on our breathing properly before. What happens is our body doesn't take in as much oxygen. So we're actually getting a lot more oxygen to our cells, and that's going to create more oxygen to the cells means more ATP, which is the energy currency for the body. That's what ATP is used to energize the body. And once you create more ATP, that means more energy for the body. So that's why one of the reasons why we actually feel lighter when you do it. I felt much lighter. Yeah. I'm crouched down in a kind of kneeling position, a very low stool at the moment. So but getting up, felt a lot lighter for me. But also, a lot of people might feel a little bit calmer. It's a huge range of things. But what happens as well is because we've learned to breathe properly, we're getting more energy, oxygen to the muscles. And because of that, we're feeling less stressed in the head because there's more oxygen going to the head. But also, functionally, we're actually getting, our diaphragm is pushing down on what is called the psoas muscle, which is a messenger to the hips. So what we're actually doing by breathing properly is bringing more in hip strength to ourselves. And the hip strength is one of the main functions of running an athletic performance. We need our hips and our glutes firing. So it's multiple factors what we've done there. And that's why the power of breathing, this is, as I say, the base activation I do before my sessions, and put the body in that relaxed state. So the rest of the activations work as well.
That's brilliant. Then Andy,
so,
with the hips and glutes, would you say that they're the muscle that probably gets the most stress for athletes? As in the most tightened?
It does happen, but why that happens is compensation. And what I mean by compensation is, if we're actually, for any human being, if we're in a kind of protective, in compensation, we're in a kind of shut down state. So yes, the first thing to go really when stress hits the body is the psoas, which is a kind of a hip flexor muscle. It tightens, and that really shuts down the body. So we kind of go into protective state. So posture happens. So when we see someone with poor posture, it's more likely not because of weak muscles at the back here and tight muscles here. That's essentially the result of it. But the main problem is the muscle of the hips have shut down because the psoas is tightened completely. So it's a hip flexor muscle that's supposed to, is one of that reacts very, very much to stress. So when we're under chronic stress, the hip flexor muscle psoas kind of contracts and constantly contracts, puts itself in a kind of a shutdown state.
Really compresses.
Impacts. And that's when we're in a tight state. Muscles, because the muscles of the hips slow, you kind of switch off. Other muscles, hamstrings, lower back, have to take over the strain of the glutes, and the glutes have to switch off. Most importantly, one of the biggest muscles in the muscle groups in the human body, they switch off, and so the hamstrings and everything have to take over. So that's compensation patterns. Muscle overuse, muscle underuse happens, and that's what tightens the body completely up.
Andy, what would you say would be a good test for athletes and everyday people to realise that maybe they do need a bit of an activation and their glutes and hips are compensating and they are a bit compressed?
There is generally feeling there's multiple ways of doing it. I've got on my website 2 illustrations, thegreatathletenexus.com. So hopefully we can get a link to that. There's muscle tests on that. If people scroll down on that on my website, and they'll see the muscle tests, and one of them's a glute test, and one of them's a hamstring test. If you can't hold those muscle tests and hold them easily, as in resist someone pressing down on them, then that's one indication that you need activation, because you're already in a state of a suboptimal state. You're starting off it's pretty much. So that's one way. The other way is looking at your posture. And generally, if you have poor posture, then you probably will benefit from activation, because, as I say, there's a lot of compensation patterns happening there. And if you're an athlete and you're constantly in a stress state, then maybe a good idea is to actually relax, is get activation as well. So being constantly stressed with exams, you don't feel good, generally feel stress as well, then activation is a very, very good thing as well. You need to, once you drop the body in the parasympathetic state, that relaxed state, then your body will be in flow, and then it will perform for you. But until then, if you're constantly in that stress state, bad posture, you can't hold those muscle tests, then you need activation.
And this is quite hard for the audience to believe, I imagine, but after an activation, you often are taller.
Yeah.
So Andy, do you want to talk about the bit there between your rib cage and your hips, how that opens up?
Yeah, what I found is, because the psoas contracts on itself quite heavily, the body basically compresses, so it implodes on each other, on itself basically. And what happens is the ribs and the hip bone become compressed together. So a lot of the time, you'll find a lot of people will find that they have no distance in between those.
Yeah.
And for older individuals as well, they'll find the actual ribs are inside the hip bone, so there's no distance at all. There's an overlap.
Yeah.
That's extreme cases. But what's found is, and this is my colleagues have found this as well on occasions, that they've added an inch or two to height of their clients just by releasing that area. So you can feel a lot taller, and you probably are taller, because once we open up that area and release the psoas to lengthen, as it were, through the breathing, through the other activations, then you can get the body, because it's basically what the body's doing is it's exploding outwards, which is what it should be doing,
to expand,
instead of exploding inwards, which is what happens with a stress state. So that's why when we do that, you'll find that the distance increases in between the ribs, the lower part of the ribs, and the top of the hip bone. It's great that it's quite interesting how that opens up.
Yeah, and it's so weird when you get off the mat and you just feel taller.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, and it's one of those things actually that's found specifically with the developer Doug Heel, who developed the activated treatment, the muscle activation method I use. He's used this on South African rugby players, and people under that, when they loosen up that area, their kind of feeling and charisma changes. So if people come up taller, they're exuding confidence, and they're exuding feeling amongst others. So if you've got a sportsman who's exuding confidence, that is intimidating for the opposition. That's intimidating for anyone standing up, and their charisma changes, and that's powerful. That's powerful from actually looking taller. It's incredible. Someone of small stature, if they're looking taller, or it's got that stature of chest out, and that imposing figure, even if you're diminutive, even if you're tall, that's powerful. People will notice that. So that's one of the things. The feeling of that person changes. So it can work on different levels.
Yeah, definitely essential in rugby, because I remember we watched the England game, and I think it was George Ford was doing some of the jaw activation.
Yeah, it's stretched. It wasn't me, but that put them in the England rugby team. But it's good that they're using those activations as well. They're using the muscle activation. They're actually putting it setting aside in their timetable to do activations, which it's a good benefit for them. So it's good that it's stretching to the upper echelons of sport. Really, it's great.
The elite level.
Yeah. So it's being used by the best. It's spreading. It's still a very, very new thing. This, I mean, the activator's been around. It's used the principles that have been around for maybe 100 years, but the activator's only been around for maybe 16, 17 years. And that's how Heel has been using it. So it's still a young thing in terms of a concept. So. Although the principles have been around for a lot longer, the method's been around for very little time. So it's good that the top dogs are using it as well now, starting to see it.
Would you say that muscle activation is still a topic that's growing? There's still more activations being discovered?
Yeah. It's still a bit of way to go. It's starting to get that way sometimes. There is still the training hard philosophy in there, which I'm all for consistent training. I'm all for you pushing your body out on occasions, but it's got the training hard philosophy is still there. And once the training hard philosophy is still there, there's that kind of that fitness obsession. That's still an ongoing thing at the moment. That's even up at every standard, even the world-class sportsmen are kind of using that at the moment. Now, it kind of distorts things really with it. So that's the training hard philosophy is still up there, and that's kind of in the way of the muscle activation way, because relaxation training hard, it's a confusing issue. It can confuse
you. Get the right balance. It's difficult. Get the right
balance. So. Muscle activation is starting to grow amongst it. It's got a bit of way to go, but once athletes generally from all levels notice it, then they'll notice how the body changes and how it feels to train well, to be in great nick. Then we're going to people are just going to notice it, and they're just going to, whoa, this is incredible. Because that's one of the things what Be Activated does. It opens people's eyes. When in sessions, they just think, this is how I'm supposed to feel.
Yeah.
This is how
You've reached
I
the
feel
optimal
good.
state.
I feel good. I feel energized. And people come out of my sessions, think, I feel like a new man. I feel like a new woman. And that's what you've got to have. And that's, if the training art philosophy is there, it's almost, the training art philosophy is, I've got to train hard for something, but you've got to feel good first to do good training.
Yeah, enjoy the process.
Be Activated opens the doors to that and puts the athlete in that state where they could say, okay, this is how I'm supposed to feel. This is the benefits of it. I should be in this relaxed, positive state. And then they can go about what's stopping me from actually being in that positive state. What in my life is stopping me? What thought structures are doing it? And then they can use the breathing and the activations to get back into that state. But yeah, it's growing. It takes time. And as soon as people realize, you feel good first and then do your good work, then we'll be flying.
That is so empowering, though. I mean, to be in a good state and feeling happy, every set you do, every bit of training, you're going to feel good about it, enjoy it, rather than it's a chore. And
yes, that's
perfect.
That's one of the things I found, actually. But it's an Olympic champion, actually. I'm not going to name her name because I don't think it's right. But she's an Olympic champion, and because of this lockdown we've had at the moment, it's delayed the Olympics. And she was training for the Olympics, and she came out in the newspapers, and I read that in the newspapers, that I can't go on with this slog a year longer. Now, that's so detrimental. You can't.
The wrong message for athletes.
Yeah, that you can't. And unfortunately for Olympians, because they're funded, they have that pressure of, I've got to make this fund work for me, and they'll train. I've been funded, I should train hard. And there's a difference between consistent training that's beneficial for you and training that's not beneficial. And if you're finding your training a slog, then you have to take stock. You must take stock and think, what is going to get me back training in a positive state? What is it about my training that I'm not enjoying? And speak to your coach and stop doing it, because it's doing you no good whatsoever. That is a massive, massive message. Unless you're inspired to come to training, to do your work and look forward to it, then you take stock. Doesn't mean, it just means, what's preventing me from actually enjoying my training? You can't find your training a slog. That's detrimental to yourself, and it's a massive mental health issue as well. If you feel that way, then your mental health is going to take your threat to your mental health is massive as well. You've got to have a good reason why you're turning up for your training, and you've got to have inspired to turn up for your training. And that's one thing that we have as a group. In our group, we've got people going home raving about training sessions.
Yeah,
and we've got
a brilliant group. We've all got a love for the sport.
And that's what it's supposed to be. We have a laugh, we have a joke, hugely important. And we find it important, as myself and my dad, we find it important to harness that positive, fun atmosphere, because that's what it's got to be. You can't, you need to take stock, just locate if you're finding a slog, I say again, find out what's preventing you from enjoying the sessions and change it. And hopefully this Olympic champion, this former Olympic champion as well, hopefully she'll realize where she's going wrong, and she'll change it for herself. If she was to find out and just analyze with a coach, what am I doing wrong? What can I come back that's going to get me training tomorrow and the next day? What's going to get me enjoying the sessions? And then she'll be able to change.
Yeah, get her loving it again. A bit of communication with herself and the coach.
Yes, the coach is very much communication with the coach. There needs to be some common ground there.
I think everyone can clearly recognise that Usain Bolt really portrays a massive enjoyment for the sport. I mean, when he's in the blocks doing his dances, do you think that's a bit intimidating for the other athletes?
What's intimidating is he's bloody good. That's what it's intimidating to him. That's I'm not sure he actually enjoys his sport. If he enjoyed his sport, he would still be doing it. The enjoyment, doesn't stop there. So if he had a real passion for it, he loves being in the center stage.
Yeah,
that's what he enjoys. He used sprinting as an expression of himself. And when he's dancing around in his blocks, he loves being the center of attention. And when you've got that, that's hugely powerful. That's you're the man. And his charisma is something special. Not only was what made him special was his talent and his ability as a sprinter, but his charisma is probably still is, but his charisma as his sprinting was, that was that was a massive thing of when he won races when he shouldn't have. That's what his charisma helped him doing that. And
confidence in himself
helps as well. If you're 6'5", you're going to stand taller. Then he had it all in his package. He had it all, and it was a pure joy to watch him do his work. It really helped. Yeah, you could learn a lot off that man in terms of how not so much. He was generally being himself as an athlete on the start line. It's not necessarily everybody's jumping around and that's what everybody's got to do. That's not what I mean. But you have to be yourself on the start line and make sure that you're expressing the best part of yourself.
Andy, that's kind of just led me on to think about next season with all sports. Do you think that the professional football stars, rugby stars, athletes, do you reckon the very top of the field will still be on the top of the field next year? Or do you think this adversity could give a chance for underdogs to spring up, rise up to the challenge?
I suppose it's interesting. A year makes a big difference. It's depending on how they react to this adversity, each athlete. If they react well and see this as a benefit of saying, well, great, another extra training session, another extra year training, I can just get better, then they can use it as a benefit. Yes, another year there might be another star on the world stage that comes up. So a year can make a massive difference.
It'll be exciting to see.
But it's generally it's survival of the fittest, how they react to lockdown, how they, have they seen lockdown as a benefit where they can look at, and I released a lot of videos on this. It's our athletes seen lockdown as a benefit where they can look at what else they can actually improve their performance instead of fitness, or is they've seen it as a hard, something that is negative. And it's going to be interesting to see who's benefited from lockdown, who's seen it as a positive.
Yeah, I think it'll really separate the field between the medium. I think that will go, half the medium people will go very high up in the rankings, or they'll fall and crumble. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting. I'd say for a lot of people, it's a lot of athletes, even the top ones, are overtraining. So it probably would have helped them to actually have a delay in training. So it could be for the benefits if they see it. But it's how people see it, how they see this kind of it's how they view it, and the people who view it better will come out of it better. It's the day-to-day stuff I think is keeping inspiration inside you. It's the day-to-day stuff you do. It's the day-to-day thought patterns you're thinking, and whether you're keeping that relaxed state, getting back into your own body. That's what's most important. It's being patient with yourself as well, because when we accept something like this it's so different. It's the day-to-day stuff, the small things that we do. It's very much the small things we do and how we think that are hugely important to the bigger things.
Okay, all the small things right.
Yeah, if we can get back to ourselves and learn to breathe properly, and do that several times a day, we can do a lot for ourselves. That's huge.
Well, thank you very much, Andy. That's been lovely speaking to you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
We will attach the links to your website, Instagram, and your YouTube, so everyone can check out some more awesome videos. So thank you very much, Andy, for being on today's show.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you. Thank you.
Cheers.